By the way, sir, is this funny? I'm sorry.
This is not funny, sir. Not at all. It's been 2 years of misery.
Excuse me? This is funny, Ms. Reed? All right, we're done.
Did you become aware or familiar with Brian Albert's nephew, Colin Albert?
I know the name, and I know that he is one of the sons of Chris Albert.
I must have gone to the bathroom or something. I came back and I said, "Where did Higgins go?" And they said he left, correct?
Sure, yes.
It's now 12:26. Higgins has already attacked John O'Keefe, and the body's laying somewhere within that circle, most likely on the right side of the house.
I've noticed a male and a female in the car.
You didn't see a Jeep with a big old snowplow on the front of it?
No, sir, I did not.
That car was never between your car and the SUV, was it?
I never saw any other vehicle in between us.
As we move closer to the arrest of Brian Higgins for the murder of John O'Keefe, we're going to analyze the critical time period between 12:10 and 12:35 when the murder occurred. Let's watch. At 12:10 and 39 seconds, Karen Reed and Jen McCabe exit the waterfall. Old John O'Keefe is still up there. At 12:11 and 3 seconds, John O'Keefe exit the waterfall.
Green is John and blue is myself. So John sent to me where to at 12:14. The calls between myself and John O'Keefe, 12:14 and 12:18.
McCabe was the social ringleader trying to get John and Karen to come back to 34 Fairview. She texted John at 12:14 and then followed up with a call informing him where to go.
Her older brother Ryan was coming to pick us up to take us home. So she went out to talk to him. Prior to him arriving, she said something to me along the lines of, "Ryan's coming to get us."
So while we were hanging out, I believe the girl Julie Nagel's brother came to the house. I never saw him, but I could hear them saying that he was out front. And I think Julie Nagel had walked outside to talk to him.
I did text my brother to see if he could pick me up a little after, probably like 15 minutes after midnight. Just a few people saying, "Oh, just have your brother come in."
Over the course of the evening, what, if any, communication or text or anything did you send to either of those two people?
While I was at the house, I think I shot a text just to John. "Where are you?" I think that's what it was.
Yeah, just a casual text, "Where are you?"
If you recall, did you ever get a response to that text?
No, there was no response. Yes, I said, "Are you coming here?" with followed by 3 question marks.
That was at 12:20 a.m. 4 minutes later, John O'Keefe and Karen's SUV arrives right in front of 34 Fairview. The real question is, was Higgy Bear inside the house or was he waiting in his Jeep parked in the garage?
We let the other car that was coming from the opposite direction, we let them take a right onto the street first. We yielded to them.
This girl was sitting in the backseat of Ricky's pickup truck. She saw Karen Reed's SUV approaching and passed them as they were making a turn onto the final road. However, she did see both John O'Keefe and Karen Reed at that point, and then later she's going to testify that when they drove by, it was only Karen in the SUV. That's very critical.
Yielding to this vehicle taking a right, what, if any, observations did you make of people inside that other vehicle?
I've noticed a male and a female in the car. The female was driving and the male was in the passenger seat.
What time did the location data indicate that John O'Keefe's phone arrived at 34 Fairview on January 29th?
12:24 and 28 seconds.
And that's a critical time provided by the defense's expert. Remember, in the first trial, there was some movement in John's phone as they approached 34 Fairview. Everyone thought that they went downstairs, went upstairs, got beat downstairs. That turned out not to be true.
Now, as Ricky is driving down the street to wherever this friend's house is, where does that SUV that you observed making the turn, where does that go?
It was parked on the street outside a house.
When you get to the house, where was it that Ricky parked the truck in relation to the house?
Right outside the house, probably a little past the mailbox. She invited us inside the home, and I had told her that I did not want to go inside. I was tired and it was late, just wanted to get back home, so.
It's now 12:26. Higgins has already attacked John O'Keefe, and the body's laying somewhere within that circle, most likely on the right side of the house.
She was like, okay, went back in and we left.
So I went outside, my brother in the passenger seat, his friend Ricky, and then his ex-girlfriend Heather. I asked them if they wanted to come in. They said no.
So they were parked right at the end of the driveway?
Yes. Ricky's pickup truck, Ford F-150. I walked down the steps through the little path, down the driveway, and they were parked right in front of the driveway.
Julie Nagel went outside. Her brother had come to pick her up, and so she was going to go tell him, try to get him to come in.
I looked out the window at that point, and she was outside talking to her brother, so his truck was there, and I saw another car there as well.
You were asked specifically at the time that you looked out the window who was there, and you said, I'm not sure if Brian Higgins was there.
Okay, if I said that, yes, because I was not sure. I'm still not sure that if he was there or not.
Now we can pinpoint exactly when Brian Higgins attacked John and when he wasn't with the entire group.
So at any point in time that you were inside of the house, was your attention drawn, or did you look out the windows or the door or anything like that?
No.
And that's huge because we know everyone inside is looking out the window, looking out the door, seeing Karen's car, seeing Ricky's truck. They were all looking out the window, but you know who wasn't there? Old Higgy Bear.
Where was the dark SUV in relation to the house?
If you came out that front door, pretty much right in front of the house, parked in front of the house.
This big dope is Matt McCabe. He's married to Jen McCabe. For some reason, they're all sticking to the lie that Higgy Bear parked his girly Jeep right in front of the mailbox. We know that's not true, so whenever they're saying it, they're lying. The question of why they're lying is still unanswered.
Straight out would be Miss Reed's vehicle that I looked at.
Okay.
I kind of looked at that. I remember my peripheral vision seeing lights over there to the left.
There's that 1225.
Matter of fact, you know what vehicle that is.
I do, yes.
What vehicle is it? Describe it for the jurors, please.
It's Ryan Nagel's. When I went to the front door and looked out, it was straight ahead.
So that would be in line with the Jeep, correct?
Yes.
Directly in front of the Jeep.
I don't know the distance, but yes, you're correct. It was in front of the Jeep.
She has to be lying about the placement of the Jeep because it's conclusive that the Jeep was not parked in front of the house.
Did any car pull in between Ricky's truck and the SUV when you were sitting behind the SUV?
No, sir.
You didn't see a Jeep?
No, sir.
With a big old snowplow on the front of it?
No, sir, I did not.
That car was never between your car and the SUV, was it?
I never saw any other vehicle in between us.
When you came out to the truck at the end of the driveway, what, if any, other vehicles did you see in the area of the house on Fairview?
Well, before when I went outside, I did notice another vehicle before my brother pulled up.
Can you describe that vehicle for the jury? Sort of what did it look like? What kind of vehicle was it?
Yeah, it was a black SUV.
So when Miss Nagel went outside, what were you?
I was sitting at the table, and then my nephew had said another car was out there. I went to the front door. I think I said here, ? So this one is from myself to John, and it says here at 12:27. So at that point, I see a car out front.
And that's a critical time. At 12:27, Hen McCabe's looking out the window. She sees Karen's SUV, but she doesn't see John O'Keefe. We now know at that point, John O'Keefe has already been attacked by Higgy Bear.
And I text him here.
Yeah, so I saw a truck, which was Julie Nagel's brother's truck, I believe, and that was a little ways, almost like in front of the driveway of the house, and then a little ways in front of it, there was another car that I hadn't recognized before. It was a dark SUV.
Junior's testimony clearly sets forth that Higgy Bear's girly Jeep was not parked in front of the mailbox, as he said, as well as Hen McCabe and her dopey husband, Matt.
Ish, and that's all I knew about it and could see about it.
Equivalent to where the driveway was. And then after the end of the driveway, there was a Jeep. And after the Jeep was the SUV, the dark SUV.
So the back end of the Jeep would have been right around the mailbox itself. And the edge of the driveway is right there. I wanted to make sure that I was not blocking the driveway or blocked in.
Higgy Bear is so cute when he's lying. He always adds that little fun story to whenever he's being deceptive in order to throw us off.
Yeah, so the first time I looked, I would say it was closer towards the mailbox, maybe a little bit in front of the mailbox. And then the second time, the last time I looked out the window, it had moved further down, closer to, I'll say, the flagpole. So closer that way, it went down that way.
Indicated that you saw Ryan Nagel's vehicle outside.
Yes, I knew there was another vehicle outside.
And where was that in relation to Miss Reed's vehicle?
Behind it. I didn't pay much attention to it.
Okay, and where was the Jeep in relation to Ryan Nagel's vehicle and Karen Reed's SUV?
I remember seeing Karen Reed's SUV straight, and then I saw the lights of Ryan Nagel. I did not pay attention to where it was. I was just looking at Miss Reed's vehicle.
It is fascinating to watch a human ape lie when we know that they're actually lying. And here we know that whenever they testify about the girly Jeep being parked in front of the mailbox, they're lying.
Was Ryan Nagel's vehicle and those lights that you remember, were they in front of the Jeep or behind the Jeep?
I am not certain.
Haven't you testified previously that you remember the Jeep being between Ryan Nagel's vehicle and the SUV?
I am not certain where Ryan Nagel's vehicle was.
So as you sit here now, you don't know if it was in front of the Jeep as you placed it by the mailbox.
It would be.
Let me finish my question. Behind the Jeep or somewhere in between.
It definitely was not in front of the Jeep.
So it was definitely behind the Jeep.
Behind or to the side, I'm not sure.
Parked on the street in front of the house, it's not going to be beside the Jeep, right? That's going to be in the middle of the
It
road.
would have been in the middle of the road, correct?
I'm urging Karen's team, when you do this line of questioning, you have to use a visual placing the cars where she's claiming they are, or even use miniature cars. We need some form of a visual so the jury can clearly understand that she's lying.
So if it's pulled over, it's behind the Jeep.
Okay, so now we've narrowed that down. It's Karen Reed's SUV. As we're looking at the property, Karen Reed's SUV. To the right of that, as we're looking at from the street, at the property, to the right of that Jeep, behind that Ryan Nagel's vehicle, correct?
Correct.
You sure about that?
If my memory serves right, yes.
You were asked specifically at the time that you looked out the window who was there, and you said, I'm not sure if Brian Higgins was there.
Yeah.
Isn't that correct?
Okay, if I said that, yes, because I was not sure. I'm still not sure that if he was there or not.
So you're not sure whether Brian Higgins was there when you looked out the window, correct?
No. I'm not sure.
You have no independent recollection as you sit here today where Mr. Higgins was when you looked out the window, correct?
No.
I sent to John, pull behind me at 12:31. So at this point, the car had moved from the prior spot where I originally saw it. So I thought, what is he doing? Why don't they just pull behind me in the driveway? So I originally went to the front door, saw the car, texted them, then texted John. Then I went back, kind of sat at the table, just either threw my phone probably in my back pocket. And then a couple minutes later, I got up again and saw that the car had moved. So I had sent the pull behind me. And then a few minutes later, I went back to the window, to the front door, I'm sorry.
Somebody did ask you for a screenshot, correct?
Yes.
Who was that?
JJ McCabe.
And by JJ, you mean Jennifer McCabe?
Correct, yes.
Do you remember when it was that JJ, Jennifer McCabe, asked you for a copy of those screenshots?
I do not remember, no.
After John O'Keefe was found dead on the lawn, JJ was putting together a beautiful timeline just as we are. After Higgy Bear hit John O'Keefe in the head and he fell back, he was incapacitated. He had to go get Brian Albert to help remove the body. However, it is not plausible that they would put these kids, Hen McCabe and her dopey husband, Matt, in the position of trust where they can inform them that Brian just killed John O'Keefe. Therefore, it is very likely the only people that were ever informed Brian Higgins killed John O'Keefe was Brian Albert and Chief Berkowitz.
Did you provide them to Jennifer McCabe?
I did, yes.
When you left from the residence, and again, you're not sure what time that was?
Between 12:30 and 1 o'clock. I'd guesstimate it was anywhere between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, but I'm not 100% positive. It was a short period of time. I knew kind of from the onset when I got in there, it probably wasn't going to be a long time.
Yeah, because I just killed John O'Keefe outside and I needed Brian Albert's help to help dispose of the body.
Because I'm not a beer drinker and that's what they had. So I was probably one of the first people to leave.
I left between 1:30 and 2 a.m.
Brian left at around 1:30. I believe he was the first to leave. And then others left after that. So after Brian left, I had gone upstairs and hung out and watched TV up in my bedroom.
You had a long day that day, is that fair to say?
Yes, I had the funeral in New York that morning. We had the long drive back. We had been out, and now we're hanging out at my house, and It had been a long day, yes.
The long day excuse definitely wasn't rehearsed.
Yes, I think I popped back down at one point just to see kind of how long people were going to be there, and then went back up.
After moving John's body, Brian Albert had to monitor the party and make sure everyone left before he can call Brian Higgins to come over and help dispose of the body for the final time.
I think Jen and Matt was still there, Brian's two friends were still there, and my daughter Caitlin.
It is looking more and more like Hen McCabe was not involved in the actual cover-up of the murder of John O'Keefe. To me, it looks like she's a social butterfly trying to organize things, but her actions are not indicative of someone that actually intentionally wanted to harm John or cover up his death.
I think I was probably the first person to leave.
You also did not see Brian Higgins physically leave, correct?
I don't remember.
You also didn't recall Mr. Higgins ever saying goodbye to you or your group, correct?
I believe that's true, yeah.
In fact, you actually testified before another grand jury on May 18th, 2023, that at some point Mr. Higgins just wasn't there anymore. I must have gone to the bathroom or something. I came back and I said, "Where did Higgins go?" And they said he left, correct?
Sure, yes.
Can't compare your memory? Do you think your memory gets better with time or fades a little with time?
Well, some things, unfortunately, I think about every single day with this case, the trauma of it and what I experienced and went through. And there are some things that I am certain I will never forget.
This is Hen McCabe in season 2, and she definitely changed her approach. However, she's not prepared again. This was a yes or no answer that didn't need her rambling response. I don't know if she's represented or not. However, she is not prepared, and she's answering this very improperly.
And I know for sure where the car was, and I know for sure I sent those 2 texts, but I apologize if I misstated. I went out more than I did. I'm just trying to give you what I remember today.
I'm not buying her bullshit cute response here, but I am believing the fact that when she sent those texts, she meant it. She wasn't trying to harm John. She wasn't trying to lure John back to the house. John was already dead by the time she texted him.
At some point, did you note that the vehicle was gone? Let's get to that.
Yes.
Around what time was that?
I do not know.
12:45, a little before, a little after?
The records clearly indicate it was before 12:45.
I'm not sure. I can't give a time. From me to John saying hello, and it was at 12:40.
At 12:40, the data clearly indicates Karen was already gone.
So at this specific point at 12:40, when I say hello, I cannot be certain whether they were still out front or if they had left.
As you go past the SUV, what, if anything, did you observe within the SUV?
I observed the female in the driver's seat.
Appear to be the same female that you observed as you were turning onto the road of Julie's friend's house?
Correct.
Where was she in the vehicle?
The driver's side.
What, if anything else, could you see as far as the driver, as far as what was she doing or anything like that?
She was just sitting there.
And as far as you were passing, what, if anything, did you note as far as the interior lighting within the vehicle?
Yes, the interior lighting was on.
This sister's testimony is so critical. She's the last one to see John O'Keefe and Karen Reed alive in the same vehicle. And then minutes later, when she's leaving, she sees that John exited the vehicle. This is so important to the defense's case. I'm not sure Lally knew this answer was coming, but her testimony establishes that John exited the vehicle on his own. Otherwise, they would have saw him laying right there on the lawn. It is so critical to the entire case, and I salute her for coming here and being honest.
So that's why I had noticed as we were pulling away the female in the driver's seat.
As far as the male passenger that you saw as you were pulling onto the street, could you see him at that point?
I did not see any other person, just the female in the driver's seat.
Jen to John, where are you? And that was at 12:42. Myself to John, hello, at 12:45.
These text messages by Hen McCabe seem authentic and would exonerate her from any type of involvement in killing John O'Keefe.
At some point you indicated you looked out and didn't see the black SUV there anymore?
Correct.
And what was your thought as far as where John was or where John had gone at that point?
At that point, I thought maybe they decided not to come in, maybe they got into an argument, or maybe Kaylee had called.
Did you think much of it at that point?
No.
You had a long day that day, is that fair to say?
Yes, I had the funeral in New York that morning. We had the long drive back. We had been out, and now we're hanging out at my house, and it had been a long day, yes.
Well, it was a long day. We had traveled, the traffic, it just seemed like it dragged on forever.
Now, the front yard area of the house, is that something that you were looking at with any particularity or taking note of as you were walking your Jeep down the driveway?
No, it was a long day. We had been on the road. I just was looking to get home.
It had been a long day, yes.
It was a long day. Well, it was a long day. We both had the same long day.
Long day. When you left from the residence, and again, you're not sure what time that was?
Between 12:30 and 1 o'clock. I think I was probably the first person to leave.
Oh, we know that, and you can imagine the anxiety in Higgy Bear after knocking John O'Keefe out and then having to drag his body to hide it, and then he has to wait in order to figure out what to do with it.
So all of the other people that you've described would have still been in the house when you exited from the house?
Yes.
Did you become aware or familiar with Brian Albert's nephew, Colin Albert?
I know the name, and I know that he is one of the sons of Chris Albert.
Higgy Bear was so close to getting away with the murder of John O'Keefe in the first trial because we missed him threatening John O'Keefe on video 30 minutes before he killed John O'Keefe. We tried to pin this on little Colin Albert. It simply wasn't true. Notice how you don't even hear Colin Albert's name being involved in any of the working theories because he simply wasn't there.
Familiar with what he looks like?
If he walked in here right now, I wouldn't know.
And beyond the people that you've described as far as seeing at 34 Fairview Road, fair to say you don't recall anybody being introduced or identified as Colin Albert?
No.
Myself to John, please answer at 4:59. Myself to John, Karen is worried. We need to find you.
Hen McCabe sent these text messages after she was informed that John never came home.
At 4:59. Myself to John, please answer so I know you're okay. 5:04.
At the time she sent this text message, we know that Brian Albert, probably with the help of Brian Higgins, had already moved the body from wherever they stored it to near the flagpole. Based upon the documented evidence, it's very likely none of the people in the house ever were informed that John O'Keefe was killed by Brian Higgins. Most likely, they got together, came up with a script, including where the old girly Jeep was parked, and then had them say it. If I was Brian Higgins and Brian Albert, I would never, ever trust any of these kids or their wives with the confidential information that Brian Higgins knocked out John O'Keefe on the side of the house and eventually killed him. Inch by inch, day by day, we are getting so close to knowing exactly how and when Brian Higgins attacked John O'Keefe, which eventually led to his death. But we are not going to stop producing these videos until the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
is brought to justice.
What kind of relationship? A buddy-buddy relationship?
The same thing everybody wants, a real relationship.
A romantic relationship, Mr. Higgins?
It's possible.
Right.
I kissed gay Jeff. The same thing everybody wants. A real relationship. It's possible. Sending somebody flowers. It's possible.